Well, that was Frank Maloney talking to Mike Costello. Now, Steve, he clearly still feels, Frank Maloney, that he's got to defend himself over the death of Darren Sutherland. I mean, is he right to feel that?
Well, I think he's right to pay that some regard, because he may have to defend himself at some stage. I personally don't think he's got anything to defend himself against. I've read and seen the so-called accusations, and it sounds just like the father, Tony. Understandably, he's upset. Of course he's upset, because he entrusted his son, his lovely boy. I've got a lovely boy. He entrusted his lovely boy to a man in a foreign country. And he's died in that guy's care. That's the way to look at it. Now, you'd be upset. You're a mother. That's just natural rage. Let's get it right. And that's what that is. There's nothing at all that Maloney's done. He's not kept in prison. In fact, when he was a boy at Brendan Ingle's gym, I'll just tell you this, Mike, he suddenly decided after 5 years, when he was 19, that he wanted to go home because he was missing his two sisters. So Brendan said he got himself off to the airport, bought himself a ticket, and actually got back, blagged his way home without a passport. So if he could do it at 19, he could do it at bloody 27 with a few £100,000 in the bank.
And as you said, it's understandable what the family are feeling. Maybe they want answers, and maybe even at this stage they want someone to blame. And it's also understandable that Frank Maloney might just feel he's on the back foot and needs to start fighting back at this stage, because his reputation as a man, as a promoter, is at stake. And if this really sticks and no boxers come to him in the future, then his life as a promoter is gone. So he's got to defend himself.
Because let's make it clear, I mean, Darren lived with him, as you said, for 4 months. He saw him at the weekend, the day before he died.
And there were other options, and I'm not that sure that Frank Maloney, as a promoter in the way he works, has changed in the past year compared to what he did in the years before that. So maybe there are still answers and questions, but at the moment I think he's every right to defend himself.
Now, on my defunct Satanta show, we had Frank Maloney and Darren Sutherland on the day that he signed in October last year, and what Darren told me was there were 2 other offers on the table for far more money, Steve. Trust me, he said, for far more money. He said, but I wanted to stay with Frank because I trust him. So if ever Frank Maloney needs a testimony, he's just got to get that tape from somewhere, it's probably on YouTube, and play that as his testimony, because nothing's changed since then. If anything, his profile went up, certainly his bank account improved. I don't think little Frank's got a single thing to answer for. I'd like to see him take a backward step. I don't know about you, Mike.
Well, I mean,
he
said plenty now and put his case there, but he might have to come back again after this show on RTE TV tomorrow night. But I think this homesick experience is quite interesting, because before Beijing last year I went to the Olympic camp for the British boxers, and there were a dozen of them there at that time. They hadn't all qualified, but virtually to a man they said to me, they were there 4 days a week and then went home at the weekends, and to a man they said to me that they were feeling homesick, but they had each other to lean on. And that's one of the big differences between the amateur game and the professional game. Quite often you leave that club set up, you leave the international team set up, and you suddenly find yourself on your own. And Brian Lawrence, his trainer, who you heard Frank Maloney referring to there, said to me once at a press conference before one of Darren's 4 professional fights that Darren, for the first few weeks as a professional, used to go to the gym skipping and smiling, but that smile was soon wiped off his face. Not because of what we're hearing about now, but because he suddenly realised he was no longer in a sport, he was in a business and a sport.
And and you can understand, without wanting to preempt what the Sutherland family are going to say tomorrow night on RTE, that clearly they are looking for a reason, because in my experience, if people take their own lives, you're desperate to find a reason for it. And actually, I imagine that in the world of boxing, which is so macho, to say, actually, he was suffering from a mental illness is almost a taboo.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is, of course, that in the build-up to this to the hanging last Monday, his form had been off in the gym. He wasn't right. He wasn't happy. Now, what geniuses are saying? All these guys around boxing gyms are saying, "Oh, we knew he was depressed." No, we didn't. We thought he had a problem with a girl. No, we didn't. We thought he'd knocked up a girl or something like that. We thought it was the normal things that young men feel a little bit hang-dog about in the gym. No one thought he had a mental problem in the gym. And I'll tell you something. If the people that are reinventing a bit of history continue, they should look at themselves in shame, because nobody was picking up on whatever led to this boy to do what he did.
So do we think, we don't know, do we? The bottom line is that we don't know why he decided to do what he did, Mike. But do you think that depression and mental illness is a serious issue in boxing? Could this actually uncover something which hasn't really been talked about in the past?
I'm not sure it would. It's such an individual case.
Is that because it doesn't exist, or do you think because people just don't want to talk about it?
It's a taboo issue that fighters don't want to talk about. But interestingly, Frank Maloney was saying there that Darren Sutherland actually was receptive to this and maybe realised that he needed help in this area. You know, we've heard this year of an all-time great, Alexis Arguello, committing suicide, but there are many suicides in other sports. You were talking earlier to Pat Murphy about that raft of suicides in cricket that seem to happen in a short space of time. It's a very individual case here, and I'm not sure that we can widen it to look at any issues that could be tackled by the sport as a whole, because there are many boxers in his position who come to a different country, come to a strange setup, and there are many who don't have that kind of support around them that Sutherland had certainly in those first 3 or 4 months when he was living with Frank Maloney's family.
And Frank Maloney sounds very, very shaken up, as you can understand. I mean, the shock of it is almost unbelievable, really. Do you think that he'll carry on in the fight game?
I think he'll carry on, because since Frank's been about 8 or 9 years of age, it is all that he has known. And when he talked there, he was a telling comment. They were trying to take his phone away from him when they were trying to put him and get him scanned and putting gel on his chest to do all sorts of scans. He wouldn't let them have the phone. He got permission on a Tuesday morning to get his laptop in so he could communicate with people. He's a workaholic. He's a worker, and I disagree with what he said there. He doesn't live very well, and if he's listening, he does need to take care of his health a lot better than he's been doing the last 25 years that I've known him.
But addicted to stress, and like he said, it's not a job for him. It's almost a calling. So he's addicted to the stress that comes with that, and he's already talking now about a new signing, which is David Price, who won Olympic bronze also last year, and he's looking ahead to his future now. So that spells out the addiction for you.
He's done that signing since finding Darren, by the way.
And do you think there is more to come out about this story, Mike, in your estimation?
I'm sure there is. I mean, the family are making this appearance on television tomorrow night, and pointedly to the Irish press at the funeral on Monday, Darren's father, Tony, said that he wouldn't be making any statement on that particular day. He's going to wait to speak after the funeral, and it sounds like that first public utterance is going to be tomorrow night on the Late Late Show on RTE TV.
OK, still to come on.